BLP got the place crowded. All aboard? Yeah. You ready to roll? Yeah. Can I talk just a little bit? Can I really talk just a little bit? Can I really talk just a little bit? Hold on. Now is the time.
Now is the time.
Everybody ready?
Everybody ready.
Go tell your friends.
Go tell your friends.
Tell your whole family.
Your whole family.
Tell the stranger upon the left.
On the left.
Tell the stranger upon the right.
On the right.
We rolling with BLP. It's one chance to make this right. Together we rolling. Together we moving. Together we working. And we building. Tell me how you're feeling. You know why? All our way with the BLP. All our way one family. All our way with the BLP. All our way with me up. Come let me step.
With me up.
We making it better.
With me up.
Climbing up the ladder.
With me up.
We ain't looking back. Lad. Everybody know, come get aboard.
Yeah.
We're taking the more heavy load.
No.
Let me come together and make things better. Now we're ready for the road. We don't want no drama. No, get on board with me. It's one big family and we're rolling with BLP. And together we rolling. Together we moving. Together we working. And we building. Tell me how you're feeling. You know why? All our way with the BLP. All our way one family. All our way with the BLP. All our way with me. Come let me step.
With me up.
We making it better.
With me up.
Climbing up the ladder.
With me
And
up.
we ain't looking back, lad.
Red.
We ain't taking no more heavy load.
Red.
We ain't taking no more. Now is the time.
Now is the time.
Everybody ready?
Everybody ready.
Go tell your friends.
Go tell your friends.
Tell your whole family.
Your whole
Tell
family.
the stranger upon the left.
On the left.
Tell the stranger upon the right.
On the right.
We rolling with BLP and we making everything right. Together we rolling. Boy, everybody. Together we moving. Together we working. And we building. Tell me how you're feeling. You know why? All our way with the BLP. All our way one family. All our way with the BLP. All our way with me. Come let me step.
With me up.
We making it better.
With me up.
Climbing up the ladder.
With me up.
We ain't looking back, lad. Together we rolling. Together we moving. Together we working. And we building. Tell me how you're feeling. You know why? All our way with the BLP. All our way one family. All our way with the BLP. All our way with me. Come let me step.
With me up.
We making it better.
With me up.
Climbing up the ladder.
With me up.
We ain't looking back, lad.
We safer with me. We safer with me.
Boom. My sweet Barbados, we greater. Bring me a Molly, we safer. Try put them lights down and go wait till later. When I hear my,
Right now she got 5-star loan. We voting Mia and more. She's the best PM for we. Mia and the BLP. Who best to lead this country? Vote Mia and Team BLP. Barbados Labour Party is the only choice for we on call. We want Mia for sure in this election. Mia is the champion, say on call. We want Mia for sure in this election. Mia is the champion, so come. Hands up there, we keep on voting. Mia is the one for win. Hands up there, we keep on voting with Mia and the BLP. Hands up there, we keep on voting. Mia is the one for win. Hands up there, we keep on voting with Mia and the BLP.
no, on your mark, get set, get ready now to put down the hex. January 19th, everything set. BLP live and direct. Everybody know. Trip to the polling station. Pick up the pencil tip. Put down the X with the BLP quick.
Mia, we safer with Mia.
Boom.
Right now she got 5-star loan. We voting Mia and more. She's the best PM for we. Mia and the BLP. Who best to lead this country? Vote Mia and Team BLP. Barbados Labour Party is the only choice for we on call. We want Mia for sure in this election. Mia is the champion, say on call. We want Mia for sure in this election. Mia is the champion, so come. Hands up, let we keep on voting. Mia is the one for win. Hands up, let we keep on voting with Mia and the BLP. Hands up, let we keep on voting. Mia is the one for win. Hands up, let we keep on voting with Mia and the BLP.
My sweet Barbados, we greater. With me and Marley, we safer.
Mia, we safer with Mia.
With me and Marley, we safer.
Mia,
My sweet Barbados, we greater. With me and Marley, we safer. Try put them lights down, we don't wait till later.
we safer with Mia.
people want BLP. What yo, what Barbados want BLP.
Good night.
Oh, yo, oh. Well, let me go, let me go, let me go. We making history, we heading out for victory. We voting BLP, that is the best for the...
Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. This is the platform of the Barbados Labour Party, a party with a proud history of serving the interests of Barbados and Barbadians, providing a better life for our people. Tonight, here at Holders Hill, this platform is mounted to support the candidacy of Sandra Husbands, a woman who raised her hand in 2018, and for whom you said, we choose you to be our representative. But in 2013, she also raised her hand, and you determined that you were not yet quite ready for this woman. And for me, her behavior, having lost her bid in 2013, her behavior is one that spoke to the kind of person that she is. Within 3 weeks of losing the 2013 campaign, Sandra Husbands was back in St. James South on the ground day after day, week after week, seeking to serve the needs of the constituents. She did not suck her thumb. She did not leave her party. She stayed with her people. She stayed on the ground to the point where you resoundingly elected her to be your representative in 2018. That is the woman who comes tonight and once again asks you for your vote. Tonight we have assembled a cadre of speakers who will speak both on her behalf and on behalf of the Barbados Labour Party team, led by the Honorable Mia Amor Motley. Can we give it up for Mia Motley? An outstanding leader who commands the respect, the ears of world leaders, who speaks with authority on the world stage, not only for Barbados, but for the Caribbean and for small island developing states. Our first speaker tonight was the David of the 2018 campaign. I assume he has brought his sling with him tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Mr. Neil Rowe out of St. Michael, Northwest.
Anytime a man keep his word and do real enough for the community, from the time he get elected on now, he deserves to get the votes. So we can re-elect Neil Rowe for St. Michael, Northwest, for sure. Real results with Rowe. Be voting real results with Rowe. You don't know real results with Rowe. Be voting real results with Rowe. He built homes for disadvantaged families. Every day he helped the community pave the roads so we could drive smoothly. Provide jobs to help fight poverty. Clean up programs for the community. Entrepreneurs get enough opportunities. Promote peace and unity. Vote for Rowe.
Good night, Hinsville and surrounding areas. Good night, Barbados Labour Party family. Tonight I come here to give my full support behind the candidate for the constituency of St. James South. And I want to remind the people in this constituency of the hardship that you had to endure between 2008 and 2018. And we as a government came to office and had a lot of work to do. And I want you all to remember when the last government gave the public servants of this country a salary freeze between 2008 and 2018. And our beloved Prime Minister, Mia Amor-Motley, made it her business, despite economic challenges, to give the public servants a 5% increase across the board. And when the COVID-19 pandemic came in, we found just over $2 million to invest in the housing area electrical upgrade in Hayesville. And I want the people in Hayesville to understand that with Sandra Husbands being re-elected on the 19th of January, she will continue to serve the good people of St. James South. And despite the critics that may have a lot to say about my Conrad, I know that she is a lady that cares. And I can assure you that Sandra have the interests of her constituents at heart. And I know that better days are ahead for the good people of St. James South. I don't mind the opposition. They will come and try to sell you dreams. But I want you to be wary of the Democratic Labour Party and whatever they're proposing to do for you. And I don't understand why they seem to think that we are not doing a good job as a government. We have done more in 3.5 years than they did in 10. And these are the things that really upset me. When I really look back at the hardship that we had to endure on the dam. There was no leadership under the last administration. We had a prime minister before that said to us that downgrades don't mean nothing. And then the last government wasn't able to borrow any money at all. And what we did when we came in, we rectified the problem. And you don't think that it took proper leadership and management to be where we are today? And you all will really vote back them into office on the 19th? Well, that's like selling your future. And I will advise the good people of St. James South, do not put your future at risk with the Democratic Labour Party. We had a Prime Minister that said to us that potholes save lives. Could you imagine that? And what we did when we came to office, despite the challenges that we are experiencing, we still managed to pave roads across Barbados. You feel under the Democratic Labour Party that those things would have been possible? Never. And I don't understand why the leader of the Democrats seemed to think that she could do a better job than me and more Motley. Well, I never read about her or ever. I can't even recall seeing her on the international scene yet. And when it comes to leadership, we have a leader that is well known regionally and internationally. And the Democratic Labour Party seem to think that the good people of St. James South and across Barbados forgot what they did to us when they were in office. And then they want to be walking about telling people about we raised the bus fare from $2 to $3.50. But what they should do, they should preach the truth. It was under them when they had the intention to raise the bus fare to $5.40. That sounds like a government that have a conscience or have the poor people interests at heart. Well, if this government was as ignorant as them, we probably would have raised it to $5.40. But thank God that we have a leader that have the understanding, the compassion, love for people, know how to manage, know how to govern. And we decided to put it at $3.50. And for the time that we've been in office, the good people of Barbados can see where the taxpayers' money gone. Not a bus between 2008 and 2018. And them really want to go talk for the Barbados Labour Party government. They should be shamed. We put buses on the road. We ain't squandered the taxpayers' money. We put garbage trucks on the road. The taxpayers' money then going to our pockets. And they want the good people of St. James South to vote for Sandra Husbands on the 19th of January. The Democratic Labour Party don't have nothing to offer the good people of Barbados. So don't mind all the pretty talk, all the fair promises. And when it comes to leadership, tell me who will lead the Democratic Labour Party. But the present leader cannot walk in my leader's shoes. Our leader know how to keep our government together, united. But the Democratic Labour Party can't get it done. Them fighting for leadership, and we focus, and we will remain focused, and we will continue to do what is best for the interests of this country and the people who we serve as a government. And all I am asking the good people of St. James South, remember, your future is in your hands. Remember, your future is safe with the Barbados Labour Party. Your future is safe with Mia Amor Motley being the Prime Minister of this country. And I want you to vote and the Barbados Labour Party on the 19th of January. And I want you to vote for Sandra Husband remain the representative for St. James South on the 19th of January 2020.
Wait, you vote, vote, come and vote. You never vote, vote, you better vote. You vote, vote, come and vote. Vote, know your ex, look, vote, Neil. Wait, you vote, come and vote. You never vote, vote, you better vote. Vote, you vote. Everybody mark one. Wait, you vote, vote, come and vote. You never vote. Wait, you vote, vote, come and vote. You never vote, vote, you better vote. Vote, you vote, vote, come and vote. Vote, know your ex, look, vote, Neil. Rule. So be voting for Neil. Everybody mark one X. Join in, let me make the flex. For Neil, everybody mark one X. From one post to the next.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Neil Rowe. Can we give it up for Mr. Rowe, please? When you cut to the chase, an election really is about choices, about contrasts. When I opened tonight, I contrasted the behaviors of two people who put themselves forward for election and lost an election. One of those persons, I said earlier, stayed the course, put their head down, did the hard work, and over time earned the respect and the confidence of the electorate. The other person did no such thing, but is seeking an easy escape, an easy route to this thing we call parliamentary representation. An election is about contrast. So let's talk about the parties. The Barbados Labour Party, 1938, era after era, has consistently thrown up men, and until 2018, only men, now women, who have been leaders for their time. Sir Grantley Herbert Adams, led his band of men. Tom Adams led his band of men and women that saw the resurgence of the Barbadian economy and the expansion of the Barbadian economy. Owen Seymour Arthur, he too came in his time and led another band of Barbados Labour Party men and women who rose to the occasion, who answered the call and provided the leadership Barbados needed for its time. And in 2018, Mayor Amor Motley took leadership of the Barbados Labour Party and followed the pattern. And in the most trying of circumstances, navigated Barbados through some very difficult waters. And she too has joined that rich legacy of leadership for its time. The other party, the other major party in Barbados, has had but one leader who stands out as a leader for his time, who adequately responded to the circumstances and the needs of the time. Elections are about choices and contrasts. On the leadership front, I say to you, the Barbados Labour Party wins hands down. Our next speaker comes from St. James North. Valiant, fearless, a defender of the differently able. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the platform, Mr. Edmund Hickson.
Me ready for elections and be voting Edmund Hickson. Elections when we reach at the poll, by Edmund Hickson we place it. Me ready for elections and be voting Edmund Hickson. Elections when we reach at the poll, by Edmund Hickson we placing VX. Let we go, let we go. Edmund Hickson be voting in the best. When we reach by the poll, by Edmund Hickson we placing VX. Let we go, let we go. Edmund Hickson we voting in the best. Oh yes, yes your ex. We voting Edmund Hickson, yes. Oh yes, yes your ex. We ready for election, yes. Oh yes, yes your ex.
Good night, the good people of Holders Hill, Haynesville, wider St. James, South, and of course, the whole of Barbados. We have come here tonight, of course, in support of the candidature of Sandra Husbands for the Barbados Labour Party to represent you in St. James, South, in Parliament again after Wednesday's elections. And I know that adjacent to here is St. James Central, where we are asking the constituents of that parish, of that constituency, to re-elect Kerry Simmons. And of course, in St. James North, I will come into so that we would have all 3 seats again in St. James. Now, let's have a conversation for a little while. I have known Sandra Husbands before probably everybody here in this audience. We have known each other, in fact, before our respective spouses have known us. Sandra and I used to sit downside of each other in a law and legal systems class 43 years ago, no, 42 years ago, at the University of the West Indies, not far from here. And, you know, neither of us would have known at that time that we would have been in Parliament together, representing the same political party at this stage. Sandra is an extremely decent individual, caring, a lady of the highest degree of integrity, honesty, high leadership qualities, technical skills and talent, someone who is worthy to continue sitting in the Parliament of Barbados. Sandra, of course, has not come to the parliament or come to present herself to you as political leader of your constituency, having no track record at all. You know, there are some people, including many presenting themselves as candidates of the Democratic Labour Party, who come with absolutely no track record. You never heard about them doing anything for anybody, for any community. You never heard about them serving in any organization, like how Sandra served as president of the Small Business Association of Barbados and president or vice president of the Caribbean Small Business Association, and coming with that track record of leadership. You haven't heard of many or most of these Democratic Labour Party candidates serving in any Lions Club or any cricket team in leadership positions or in Salvation Army or anything. It's like if they just emerge from the underground and want to submerge to the top. Politics does not work that way. Politics is a career of sacrifice, self-sacrifice, and you have to show that you have proven ability in terms of leadership. And Sandra Husbands is the only candidate in this race with that track record. Now, Tony, my good friend, Chairman, I was wondering if he was stealing my thunder, because I'm going to contrast. He's absolutely correct. We are going to spend a few minutes here contrasting the two choices that you face on Wednesday as constituents of this St. James South and of the wider Barbados all across the 30 constituencies. On the one hand, you have a Barbados Labour Party that came into office 3 years, 8 months ago with only $220 million US in foreign reserves. $220 million, that is all the last government left us. And we could not even therefore pay the interest rate on a Credit Suisse mortgage repayment that was due the week after we came into office. So we had to, for the first time in the history of Barbados, renege on that debt repayment. That is what the Dems left us, as compared to $27 million in foreign exchange that we left them in January 2008 when they came into office. We came into office on the backs of 24 successive credit rating downgrades by the Democratic Labour Party government. A situation where their last leader, the then Prime Minister, said that that's nothing. No, those downgrades don't matter, but yes, they matter, because every downgrade we got meant that any successive loan internationally that we took out at a higher credit interest rate than the previous one, which obviously meant that the taxpayers of Barbados were paying more money to furnish the debt of Barbados. So we came into government in May 2018 where 68 cents of every dollar earned by the Barbados government went into paying debt that the Democratic Labour Party government left. 68% of all monies earned in taxes and in everything else by the Barbados government in 2018 went into servicing debt repayment. The Barbados Labour Party, within a year and a half, brought that down to 30 cents in every dollar, 30%, by restructuring our debt, by reprofiling our debt, magnificently led by Mia Amor Motley, the Minister of Finance, not only Prime Minister, and by her economic team. That is what we did, so that we therefore had greater elbow room to give public servants a 5% salary increase within 3 weeks of coming into office, as contrasted by the Democratic Labour Party, which for 9 years gave public officers absolutely no salary increase. And you will recall that, fooling around. NUPW, BWU couldn't get any salary increase. 9 years for their members. We gave that 5% salary increase. You had a contrast between pension reform, which the Barbados Labour Party carried out, whereby therefore senior citizens were able to get greater pensions compared to what they got under the Democratic Labour Party government. You have a contrast between, again, our senior citizens who paved the way for us, younger people in this country. We've riding on their backs. They worked hard in the cane fields, in agriculture, in manufacturing, wherever, to build Barbados for us, the younger people. And we've therefore found it fit, again, the Prime Minister in her mini budget 3 weeks after we came into office, to increase the non-contributory old age pension by almost 50%, from $155 every 2 weeks to $250 every 2 weeks. Non-contributory pension, you know. In other words, people who did not make sufficient contributions to the National Insurance Scheme to get a contributory pension, or even in some cases did not make any contribution at all during their working life, still getting $225 every 2 weeks. That is what we did. Contrast again, a situation where for 10 years no garbage trucks were purchased by the Democratic Labour Party, as opposed to a situation where the Barbados Labour Party 2 years ago purchased a fleet of garbage trucks, and not just any old garbage truck, modern garbage trucks retrofitted to lift up the garbage bins and put them on the back and make it easier for the collectors to deal with. Y'all have got your garbage bins here, right? Yes, just like in St. James North, just like in St. Peter. In fact, the North got the first. This is part of the Northern Zone, and the North got the first. Were the first to get. So in addition to garbage, new garbage trucks, which makes your garbage collection more efficient, you got new garbage dustbins, state-of-the-art, free, taxpayers' expense, state-funded, separating garbage and the plastics. That's what we have done. And I know for a fact that in St. James South, certainly in 2015 and 2016, y'all were under severe pressure in terms of garbage collection. Every 3 weeks, the garbage at one stage was being collected, just like in St. James North. A creation, an accident waiting to happen in terms of sanitary conditions. Buses, no new bus purchased in 10 years, 3 months by the Democratic Labour Party in the last decade. We come and purchase new fleet of 33 or 35 buses. And not, again, any foolish buses, modern state-of-the-art buses, electric buses, smooth, Wi-Fi, air condition. Put your foot up in the air and relax, read and WhatsApp, and retrofitted to accommodate people with immobilities and wheelchairs. That is what we did, so that therefore public transport is no longer an issue, just like garbage collection is no longer an issue. So whereby people were waiting in the bus stand, in some cases 2-3 hours for a bus to go home in the evening and get into work late in the morning because no bus, we have this situation. So you also have a situation, of course, where sewage was swimming in the streets of the south coast of Barbados. And some people may say, well, that has no contact with the people in St. James South or St. James North for that matter. I totally disagree, because I know for a fact that many people in St. James South work in the tourist belt, in hotels on the South Coast. And it affected them. It affected their livelihood. Businesses closed down while the tourists were swimming for 2 years under the Democratic Labour Party government on the South Coast. People had to leave their homes. That is what you had. An totally incompetent, inefficient, and ineffective government led by a man who had the audacity to say on a platform 3 nights ago that they were glory days. Well, the figment of disillusions continues in the Democratic Labour Party, because their present leadership identifies with that, has refused to apologize for all the political nonsense that they did, says that all was done well by the Democratic Labour Party in its last term of office, refuses to empathize with the people, and refuses to have any kind of remorse. In a situation we were down in almost in the gutter, the fundamentals of our economy and society destroyed by the Democratic Labour Party government. The Barbados Labour Party cabinet immediately set about raising the level of the people of Barbados. We again contrast the situation where a criminal act was committed on the people of Barbados when state-funded tuition fees, that policy was removed in 2014 in fact. Incredible. I couldn't believe it. When the then Minister of Finance got up in Parliament and said that from henceforth, and he only gave 3 months notice, from henceforth, children of poor people in Barbados would have to pay $7,000, in some cases $10,000. If you were doing medicine, $25,000 a year to go to the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill. I could not believe it, because 15 of the 16 of the then members of the Democratic Labour Party government were born poor. Children of fishermen, maids, agricultural workers, but could do that to the people of Barbados. Having risen to the top of the ladder, now kick it down. Most of them, virtually all of them, having gone to the University of the West Indies, free of cost, at your expense. Free of cost to them, but at your expense. Only 2 of them, the one who running, I don't know why he coming back again in St. Michael South Central. De facto Deputy Prime Minister, a total failure as a minister and as a politician. He and the one in St. John who replaced the late Prime Minister, his wife, they're the only 2 that were born with golden spoons in their mouth and who could have afforded to go to the University of the West Indies because of the wealth of their families. All the rest would never have reached where they reached but for that. And immediately the contrast, within 2 months, we restore state-funded tuition fees at the University of the West Indies. So that a few months ago, you had the first set of graduates writing a letter to the Prime Minister, one of the most emotional pieces of correspondence by young people praising her and the Barbados Labour Party for restoring tuition fees so that poor people's children can go to the university again. You have a contrast where we have given minimum wage of $8.50, a manifesto promise fulfilled, $8.50 an hour. And Colin Jordan, my colleague candidate in St. Peter, is here, will surely speak more about that. Contrast that to where under the Democratic Labour Party the minimum wage was $6.25, and people were being paid that an hour in many cases. Gas station attendants and maids and security guards. That is the contrast between the two parties that you have to consider when you now go to mark your vote on Wednesday in these elections, because you are now dealing with the destiny not only of you but your children and your grandchildren when you come to vote on Wednesday. You have a contrast as well between the two candidates. And let's talk a bit about the educational policy and the Democratic Labour Party. Because this Democratic Labour Party, having been wisely dished out of office by wide margins, just 3 years, 8 months ago, comes to y'all and asks y'all to give a strong opposition. Well, they recognize that they are not fit for purpose to constitute the government. So they're asking for a strong opposition. And it would be about this constituency asking for this. But I tell y'all, I implore y'all to reject that notion. The Democratic Labour Party candidates are just a cadre and assortment of people thrown up for convenience. Let's look at it. Their present leader, in fact, agreed from the Senate for the removal of state-funded fees on tuition for Barbadian citizens and permanent residents at the University of the West Indies. She said so, I think it was at the community college, and on more than one occasion that she agrees that that people should have to pay for the university education because we were concentrating too much on academics and technical skills, and you should deal with other aspects of education. So now, but having said that, and having agreed to that, and having done that as a political party in government, they now bring a manifesto promise to you that they're going to give $1,500 to every student at BCC and University of the West Indies. A complete turnaround of policy, which I implore you, I ask you respectfully, to reject, because that don't make sense. How a few years ago, you can put state-funded education, tuition fees on university students, such that students had to drop out of university because they couldn't afford it. But now you can give $1,500 in addition to the state-funded tuition fees to university students. It is impossible. It is a gimmick that I suggest to you should be rejected out of hand. Doesn't make sense. And their candidate in this constituency, who seems to be their spokesman on education, proposing that. But as I said, it's an assortment of candidates that really and truly come together quickly for this purpose. You have some who run for every political party. The one in St. James Central, he ran for 2 other parties already and now running for the BLP. One in St. Joseph, he ran for 2 other parties and ran as an independent last time. And to crown it, the candidate for the Democratic Labour Party, Sandra whipped him at the nomination for this seat. In 2018, Sandra beat him 2-1. He wanted to be a candidate for the Barbados Labour Party. You all understand that? He wanted, in other words, he subscribed to the philosophy of the Barbados Labour Party. So if he had beaten Sandra, and the Lord did not allow that to happen, he would have been standing up here where I standing up in red speaking to you. Huh? He would have been standing up speaking in red. So where is the philosophy? Where is the loyalty? And if you are not loyal to yourself, to your conscience, to your own philosophy, how can you be loyal to the people who you don't even know so well? I ask you that question because loyalty is primary. Loyalty to family, loyalty to community, loyalty to political party, loyalty to your constituents and to people. And finally, we have a contrast between the leadership of the two political parties. The only similarity is that both are women. That is the only similarity. After that, the similarities disappear. The contrast is tremendous. You have Mia Amor Motley, internationally recognized as the leader of small island developing states, as the leader of developing countries that are vulnerable to climate change, as the one Caribbean leader who, whenever she addresses an international forum, is widely acclaimed, widely quoted, widely sought after for interviews, widely sought after for meetings by leaders of the developed world, whether it's at the United Nations, whether it's at COP26 a couple months ago, whether it is at the United Nations agencies in Geneva and Brussels. Person who immediately on coming into office as Prime Minister of Barbados, a month after attended a CARICOM heads of government meeting and dominated that meeting in a situation where you have many heads of government of CARICOM, at least three of them, who have been heads of government for 20 years, coming into office, and she's the dominant personality. You contrast that with the Democratic Labour Party present leadership, bringing in 4 failure ministers as candidates who should be in another place. If we had the Prevention of Corruption Act that we now have 3 months ago, that the Democratic Labour Party, even though they promised in 2008, failed to bring into law. Present and past Democratic Labour Party leadership who are totally insignificant on the international scene, who have no track record, certainly the present one, has no track record of service or any international stature. And therefore, you cannot play with your ex on Wednesday. And this notion about voting for a strong opposition, I reject that. You vote for a government. When you go to the polls, you vote for the candidate of merit, not for any opposition. The opposition will look after itself. Let the chips lie where they fall. You vote, as an opposition member of parliament, I can tell you that you have no influence over getting things done. When I was an opposition member of parliament for 5 years, 3 months, I was told by the Democratic Labour Party that they're not doing anything for St. James North. Nothing at all, because they know they can't win the seat. So you in St. James South need a member of parliament who will be on the government benches. Sandra Husbands has distinguished herself very well as not only your parliamentary representative, but as Minister of State in the Ministry of of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. She has used her technical skills and her experience to bring credit to Barbados into that area and open up new avenues of foreign trade on our landscape and into our economy. I urge you to vote for Sandra, and I ask all of Barbados who are listening here tonight to vote for Barbados Labour Party candidates throughout the length and breadth of this country. I'm obliged to you.
Be ready for elections and be voting Edmonton. Elections when we reach at the poll. By Edmonton we placing VX. There we go, there we go. Edmonton we voting in the best. When we reach by the poll. By Edmonton we placing VX. There we go, there we go. Edmonton we voting in the be ready for elections and be voting Edmonton. Elections when we reach at the poll. By Edmonton.
Mr. Edmund Hinkson. Contrast, contrast, contrast. From the very beginning of time, life has been about contrast, opposites. Says God saw darkness and he said, let light come forth. This campaign invites you to stay safe. Stay safe. And invite you to stay safe. At one at the same time, it says, if you don't come this way, if you don't come with the Barbados Labour Party, danger awaits you on the other side. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker, we're going further north. We're going to St. Peter North. Give it up. Welcome to the stadium, to the podium, Mr. Colin Jordan.
Don't stand for man, play that you vex. Get out there and give me NTX. Cause you know BLP is the best. BLP. If you love Barbados as bad as me, vote for BLP. Me and the team BLP. Vote for BLP. You want the best for this country. Vote for BLP. Barbados Labour Party is for we. Vote for BLP. Them boys ain't ready. Them boys ain't ready yet. I voted for BLP. Them boys ain't ready yet. Me and the BLP. Them boys ain't ready yet. I voted for BLP.
Good night to the people of St. James South. Good night to the people of Holders Hill, Hayesville, and all the surrounding areas. Now, I can't call all the names because I don't know all the names of all the little areas. I'm not in St. Peter. But good night to all of you. And I've come from St. Peter this evening with a very, very simple message. I've come from St. Peter this evening to say to you, stay on the safe street. I've come to you this evening from St. Peter to tell you to stay with Sandra Husbands as your representative, as the one who speaks on your behalf in government and in the House of Assembly of this country. And why do I tell you to stay on the safe street? Ladies and gentlemen, Barbados tonight is at a critical juncture. Barbados is at a critical juncture. We are still in the middle of a pandemic. We're also dealing with climate change and all the impact. And in St. Peter, we know it very well because we try to dig wells for new water and hitting salt water very early. So we are facing the impact of climate change. We are also facing recovery from hurricanes. We are facing recovery from the freak storm. We are at a critical stage in this country's history. But I say to you, ladies and gentlemen, that even as we deal with climate change, even as we deal with a pandemic, even as we deal with recovering from a hurricane and from a freak storm, this Barbados Labour Party has been able to so manage the economy that we have been able to move our credit rating from CCC to B. In the face of crisis, in the face of a pandemic, in the face of rebuilding homes and replacing roofs, loss in storms, this Barbados Labour Party has been able to manage. And so I ask you tonight to stay on the safe street. This is no time to move off onto any funny road. This Labour Party, ladies and gentlemen, we came to office 68 cents out of every dollar. 68 cents out of every dollar had to be used to pay our debt. 68 cents. And in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of recovering from a freak storm and a hurricane, we have been able to reduce the amount that we pay to service our debt from 68 cents to 30 cents. Good management in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of recovering from all kinds of crises. The Prime Minister sometimes call it a trifecta. Well, I'm not a gambling person. I only hear trifecta associated with gambling, but we know what it means. In the midst of challenges, we have been able to reduce the amount we pay to service our debt. You know, the Democratic Labour Party and the Barbados Labour Party young man who is running now for the Democratic Labour Party against Sandra Husbands says to you that this Barbados Labour Party government has been doing a lot of borrowing. That is what they've been saying to the people of St. James South. That is what they've been saying to the people of Barbados, that we have been doing a lot of borrowing. But ladies and gentlemen, people of Holders Hill and Haynesville and all the surrounding areas, let me share some facts with you. Facts from the Central Bank of Barbados. When we came to office, the national debt was $16.6 billion. We came to office, the debt, $16.6 billion. I want you to remember that number. It sounds big, but $16.6 billion. This Barbados Labour Party has borrowed. We have borrowed. We borrowed because we had a new hospital to build at Harrison Point for the people. We borrowed because we had houses to fix. We borrowed because we had roads to fix. We borrowed because we had to supply water to people. We borrowed because we had to address 10 years of absolute neglect of the people of this country. We borrowed. But ladies and gentlemen, after having borrowed, the national debt of Barbados has declined from $16.6 billion to $13.1 billion. Astute financial and economic leadership. Because we came to office, we recognized that our debt was not sustainable. We set about restructuring that debt. And I say, thank God that we came to office in time to restructure the debt before the pandemic hit us. Stay, ladies and gentlemen, on the safe street. This is not time to fool around with people who have absolutely no clue of what to do, along with a few who were part of the wrecking team of the last Democratic Labour Party administration. There is something else I want to say before I speak about my friend, my colleague, and my sister, Sandra Husbands. Not only did the Democratic Labour Party rack up a debt of $16.6 million, when the international community decided that the Dems did not know what they were doing, when the international community recognized that they were just a desperate bunch and decided that they would not lend any more money to Barbados, do you know what the Democratic Labour Party did? The Democratic Labour Party decided that they would hold on to your money. They stopped paying tax refunds. The businesses that you worked for, that sold them toilet paper, disinfectant, photocopy paper, ink, they refused to pay those businesses. They refused to give tax refunds. That is how they were able to limp along to 2018. They weren't borrowing in 2018 because nobody was lending them. They were robbing the people of this country, refusing to pay them what they were owed, refusing to pay you what you were owed. When we came to office, there are a number of things that we knew. We knew that the economy was in peril. One thing that we were not fully aware of was the amount of money that the government had refused to pay to you. We came into office believing that it was $1,000 million. When we came into office, and Mayor Amor Montley and some others started to work from the Friday morning, even before the rest of us were sworn in. When we started to tally up the bill, we found out that the Democratic Labour Party government had refused to pay Barbadians, ordinary Barbadians and Barbadian businesses, $1,900 million. And that is not part of the 16.6 billion. I am talking about what they refused to pay to you. Adversarial financing. Taking your money, not paying you back, and using the money that nobody knows what they use it for. The courts in the United States seem to know at least how one set of money was used, but we don't know all of it. Ladies and gentlemen, the Barbados Labour Party, under the leadership of Mayor Amor Montley, a party including heading our foreign trade activity, including Sandra Husbands, has been able to reduce the amount we owe to you, have been able to pay you back almost all of the money that the Democratic Labour Party government refused to pay to you. The number is no longer $1,900 million. The number is now $38 million. In the face of a pandemic, in the face of fighting climate change, in the face of reacting and responding to a freak storm, in the face of rebuilding homes and replacing roofs after Hurricane Elsa, in the face of having to buy PPE, having to pay for tests, having to pay the fees for your children at university. This is the track record of the Barbados Labour Party. I ask you tonight to stay on the safe street. This is no time for playing around with young boys who go to pay their deposits. And rather than recognize that this is serious activity, that they want to come to office to manage the affairs of a serious country that is at a critical juncture, they stand up in front of BRA offices waving money, telling you, the people of Haynesville, telling you, the people of Holders Hill, that all they're interested in is getting their hands on money. We have to reject that in this country. We have to recognize that the business of managing a country, the business of governing on your behalf, is serious business, and it requires serious, dedicated people. Ladies and gentlemen, what have we done with the money? That is the question that is asked. Edmund Hinkson started to speak to you about the buses. We have purchased buses. To the extent now that sometimes people tell the ZRs, oh, you go ahead, I'm waiting for a transport board bus. Unheard in history in Barbados. That is buses. Eddie also told you about garbage trucks. That is what we have done with the money. When the Barbados Labour Party manages, when this Barbados Labour Party manages, you are able to see what is done with the money. Your children being educated again at the University of the West Indies. When the Dems, that dastardly bunch, kicked down the ladder, 4,000 of our brightest young people, 4,000, had to leave the university. And ladies and gentlemen, that is not something to gloss over. These were 4,000 young people who had planned their future, who saw bright prospects. And I can tell you this, many of those young people came from homes where they recognized that if they were able to obtain a university education, they would be the ones to lift their families out of poverty. 4,000 of those young people had to leave university. I say to you, the people of Holders Hill and the people of Haynesville, when university fees are imposed on the children of poor people, it is to reduce poor people to poverty. Because rich people, children, will get to university anyhow. They will be able to afford the 6,000 or the 7,000 or the 15,000 because they got deep pockets. When university education is attacked in the way that the Democratic Labour Party attacked it, it is to destroy the prospects of working class people, and it is designed to keep poor people poor. That is what the Barbados Labour Party has done. Restored, allowed young people to be able to attend university, when we will all come together and foot the bill and not leave the bill at the doorsteps of the poor people's parents. That is what we have done with the money. The Democratic Labour Party saw flooding year after year in Holetown, in Spitestown, Bournemouth, Holders Hill, everywhere. The Democratic Labour Party refused to address the challenges facing this country. The Barbados Labour Party with Sandra Husbands as part of the team, sitting as she does every week in cabinet meetings and speaking to local as well as international issues, has been able to address almost all of the flooding issues in this country in 3.5 years. In the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of fighting COVID, in the middle of dealing with ashfall, in the middle of addressing the impact of the freak storm, in the middle of dealing with houses, rebuilding houses destroyed after Hurricane Elsa, in the middle of working to rewire many of the units in Haynesville and other areas where we have housing estates. Ladies and gentlemen, stay on the safe street. This is time to reinforce good management. This is time to reinforce good leadership. I mentioned Sandra Husbands. I have the privilege of being minister responsible for labor in this country. And I'm going to say to you, when I mentioned Sandra Husbands early on, I said a number of things, friend and colleague. And I said sister, and I said friend already, and I said sister. Because, ladies and gentlemen, before I became the minister responsible for labor, I used to be a director of human resources in a hotel on the South Coast. The same South Coast where the dams allowed sewage, filth, number 2, to flow. As a matter of fact, I worked at a hotel not too far from where the toilet paper was in the road. Much of what I learned as a director of human resources came as a result of my interaction with Sandra Husbands. This is probably more than 20 years ago. Sandra Husbands, I was introduced to her, and she came to the hotel, had a meeting with me, and I engaged her services to help me to build a team. And ladies and gentlemen, I can, over 20 years later, tell you a number of things about Sandra Husbands. Sandra Husbands likes people. Sandra Husbands does not walk and get on snooty like if she believes that she should be the king of the world or the queen of the world. Well, maybe I said king because I was referring to a man. I was trying to make the contrast. Sandra Husbands likes people. I can also tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that Sandra Husbands believes in developing people. She helped me to develop people at the hotel that I was helping to lead. I can also tell you from first-hand experience, this ain't nothing that nobody tell me. This ain't from no speaking notes. I interacted with Sandra Husbands. And I can tell you that Sandra Husbands believes in building teams and working with people. That is the caliber of the person who is presenting herself to you for re-election on election day, on Wednesday, the 19th of this month. Sandra Husbands. Sandra Husbands has been leading our government in the area of foreign trade. And I just going to mention this very, very briefly. When people hear foreign trade, they sometimes, or let me say we sometimes feel it is something up there somewhere in the stratosphere. But ladies and gentlemen, foreign trade has to do with taxation. Foreign trade has to do with what the prices will be in the supermarket for the things that we import. Foreign trade has to do with the relationship that we have with all the countries around us. And Sandra Husbands, your member of parliament, the one you will re-elect on Wednesday, has been leading our country in this area. I say to you, ladies and gentlemen, on Wednesday, on January 19th, re-elect a lady. Re-elect a lady who loves people. Re-elect a lady who loves to develop people. Re-elect a lady who sees people as part of a team. Re-elect Sandra Husbands as the member of parliament, your representative in St. James South, to represent you in the House of Assembly of this country. And let us stay on the safe street. Let us keep moving forward. Let us keep improving the lot of the ordinary people of this country. Good night. God bless all of you.
We voted for me, I won't leave. We voted the BLP, Barbados Labour Party. And then we go along, active, the BLP, real active. We voted the Barbados Labour Party. Me, I want legal, everything sweet in the country, so no other party can trick me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Colin Jordan! I told you that elections are about choices. They are about contrasts. Our next speaker has seen service in the Senate of Barbados. Our next speaker has seen service as a Minister of Education. Our next speaker has seen service as an Attorney General in Barbados. Our next speaker has seen service as a Deputy Prime Minister in Barbados. And our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is the present and will be the returning Prime Minister of Barbados. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the woman of the moment. Give it up for Mia Amo Motley. Tonight is a night of contrast.
My sweet Barbados, we greater. Bring me a Motley, we safer. Try put them lights down, we don't wait till later. When I hear my,
Right now she got vibes galore. We voting Mia Amor. She's the best PM for we. Mia and the BLP. Who best to lead this country? Vote Mia and Team BLP. Barbados Labour Party is the only choice for we on call. We want Mia for sure in this election. Mia is the champion, say on call. We want Mia for sure in this election. Mia is the champion, so come. Hands up there, we keep on voting. Mia is the one for me. Hands up there, we keep on voting with Mia and the BLP. Hands up there, we keep on voting. Mia is the one for me. Hands up there, we keep on voting with Mia and the BLP.
on your mark, get set, get ready now to put down the heads. January 19th.
Woi. Good night, good night, good night. I really come here tonight to sit down and talk. All right. Because I hear they got a lot of puff up people about here nowadays. And I ain't one of them. We can talk, my brother. This election has a few days left. And the few days left will be the most important days that many of you will spend thinking, talking,
engaging with your family, your friends, your neighbors. Give them a chance there, Breads. I come to talk. I come to talk. You understand? And I come to talk because you have to ask yourself if leadership does not matter in this election. I can't do it for you. You got to do it for yourself. And many of us are taught by our parents and our priests and pastors to be discerning. And I ask you to really now apply your head. You listen to all of us as you must, but you must apply your thought process and be discerning. The Democratic Labour Party is yet to turn up for this election. We are in an election to deliver a government to Bay Street. They are in an election to settle the leadership of George Street. You understand the difference? And that you happen to be the backdrop and collateral damage. They want to tell you that you, the people of this country, were wrong for voting for the Barbados Labour Party 3 out of every 4 and giving us 30 seats. We never went into an election asking for 30 seats. We asked you for a mandate, and you gave us a mandate. And I went to Bay Street on May 27th, and I gave you a commitment that my government will not abuse power, and that my government will be loyal to the mandate that we gave, that was given to us. Oh, Lord. And I'm going to come back to that issue of loyalty in a few minutes, because loyalty is central to this campaign in St. James South. We immediately exercised leadership in being strategic. And what was the most important thing to you? If the Barbados dollar was devalued, every one of you here would have to look for 3 and 4 times the amount to spend in the supermarket that you spend now. You're earning the same salary, but all the goods that you importing, that you buying at 2 to 1, you would have been buying at 4 or 5 to 1 going into the supermarket. Now, I say this because it is as if they have forgotten what they left this country in. And I'm not going to spend time tonight repeating it because you know it as well as I do. But what you may not remember are the strategic decisions we made to reposition this country. The first being to stop us from spending 69 cents in every dollar in servicing debt. Because if you were doing that, you can spend money now to build a new accident and emergency wing, as this government has done for you. If you were doing that, you could not make the decision to appoint over 3,000 public servants, people who were serving 3 years or more. This government made decisions to right wrongs that the last government left, because we know that if you don't deal with people's sense of well-being in their employment contract, they're not going to give you the best. Colin Jordan is Minister of Labour. He will tell you that. And one of the things that we've had to do is to start to look to see how we are also going to reposition how Barbados argues for space. You know that anytime you're going through a tight hole, you need sometimes some elbow room to make sure that you got a little way to get through. And what has happened, ever since the World Trade Organization was formed, we had to put measures in place that stop us from being able to protect manufacturers and being able to protect local farmers. And many of you ask, what it is you got Sandra Husbands doing for this government when the day come? She is the body that has been arguing for the space that I, as Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, can put incentives in place so that farmers out here can grow all year round instead of having to lose the crop because of a glut of vegetables come in, and all of a sudden the vegetables that come in selling cheaper than the vegetables that you growing out here. Makes no sense. And it has come home to the international community because the climate crisis and the pandemic have both disrupted how people send vegetables and supplies and products and all of these things to Barbados. And all of a sudden we remember we're an island. And that island is cut off from the rest of the world unless you got a ship or unless you got a boat. In the Star Trek, why can't you beam me up? Let me get real. So that when we say to you that we wanted to bring the UNCTAD conference here, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, don't mean a lot to a lot of people. But Barbados is the smallest country ever in the world to host it. Countries like Brazil, South Africa, Kenya, all them stories be who hosting it. Sandra Husbands was the person who I sent to Geneva to anchor Geneva while I anchored Barbados. And why? Not because I wanted her to go up on a fancy trip, but because that is the way in which we are going to say to people, if you know that we are going to be cut off, and if you know if we have a hurricane that we ain't going to have no food coming, we got to be able to have farmers that can grow 12 months a year. They're not growing only for after a hurricane or after a pandemic or some kind of event. And these are the things that leadership requires. Have you heard Verla de Pisa talk anything in this campaign that gives you comfort, whether it is from land tax to national housing units to upgrading of all the electricals in Haynesville? We came to office and in the middle of an IMF program while saving the dollar, and we put a team in place to upgrade electricals in every unit in Haynesville. That is Sandra Husband's record in this constituency. That is the Barbados Labour Party's record. And what we've said over and over is that we now need to move to the next stage. That there are too many people living in some of the units because these units were intended to service 2 generations. Mother and father, or mother and children. Now you got great-grandmother, grandmother, child, mother, and 3 and 4 generations living in the same unit that was intended to service 2. Can't work. And that is why we have said we're going to bring a silent housing revolution. And we're going to build 10,000 homes in the next 5 years. And we're going to use the roof of those units and existing ones too in order to be able to allow you to earn a little trala so that you're not only depending on what you earn in a wage or a salary or a little business that you got. These are the things. And what do you have instead? A Democratic Labour Party that can't even call Verla their next leader and next prime minister. Everything as far as they're concerned, the president. The president. The only president I know about here is Dame Sandra Mason. Let us not get tied up. And I'm saying to you tonight that I understand that this government has not been perfect. But the pursuit of perfection is often the obstacle to progress. And I don't say that glibly. We have spent 19 months without COVID and 24 months in COVID. You understand what I just tell you? 24 months, Smiley, without tourists coming to this country until here recently the other day. And I want to salute Lisa Cummins in this government because she was able to ensure that last month we had 90% of the airlift that we had in 2019 coming back into Barbados.
Oh, Lord!
And you in St. James know, because many of you work in the tourism industry, and many of you have been the ones on the front line sucking salt because of the pandemic. I am saying to you, what is Verla going to do for you? What is Richard Seeley going to do that he didn't do before? And this weekend for them now is the Cuss Fest. Cuss Fest. Colin Spencer singing a picong on Kirk Humphrey that he is a liar. Liar my foot. I am not telling you nothing about Colin Spencer. All I know is a big man come very low. But then again, he would have to come low because you can't find low on their platform neither.
How you bad so?
And you know why? You all know why. And look at it. All of them have now degenerated into cussing for this weekend. Well, I done got on my vest and I ready for them. Come and bring it. It does not matter. Because it doesn't put food on anybody's table in this crowd or this constituency. When I tell you that a Barbados Labour Party government is going to, during the next term, remove land tax for everybody house valued $400,000 or less, that is putting money back in your pocket. When I tell you that the people under 40,000 of you, and many of them live in this constituency in St. James South. And you know how I know? Because this is the constituency that the Barbados Labour Party created a housing revolution in the 1970s and 80s. Under Lionel Craig, under David Simmons as chairman of the NHC. Oxnards, come right cross, husbands. Hainesville, all of you. And I'm asking you, if there is one constituency that carries the stamp and the imprimatur of the Barbados Labour Party, being able to make a better life for you and your people. When I was a child growing up, as a young child, all out there was Dunk Streets. I lie? It is Tom Adams and Owen Arthur. Lionel Craig was Tom's Minister of Housing. David Simmons was the chairman of NHC. And I ask you tonight, seriously, what are you going to do in the next few days? Because everyone here, in my view, has a solemn obligation and a moral obligation, if you love yourself, if you like yourself, according to Lil Rick, to make sure that a party that has no program, a party that cannot even get the manifesto right, if they can't give you a manifesto right, how they going to keep the country safe? Tonight, Verla goes on Kev Politics on Twitter to talk to young people. Drop out 5 or 6 times. Tomorrow night I go at 7. Halfway through, Verla in turn back up with the people and drop out. Gone like a fugitive, like Winston Hall, I can't find she. Well, I found her. On my way from Checker Hall here, Colin, she was right there, a mile and a quarter, talking to 4 men, 1 woman, and I had 2 cats and 3 dogs. Carlos, you followed me in the car. I ain't asking the police. Am I telling a lie? Come, man. Tell me. Am I telling a lie, Verla, and had nobody in front of her?
No bien.
But would make 700, 800 people on Twitter feel that she was so busy that she can come back on the feed to finish the Twitter. They are hiding. They are hiding. Michael Lashley was in hibernation up until a few weeks ago. David Eswick in hibernation. Richard Seeley, he come out a little bit before the others, but it didn't really matter because he's Lord ho 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 ho. Done nothing for the people. And then come with a set of promises in the manifesto to sound good, and without making all of the data available, we know that it will cost the country over $800 million. From where? The land tax rebates and reductions that we are doing will cost us $21 million. The things we are removing from VAT will cost us just under 3 million. They are measurable. They are affordable. They will ease you where it matters, but it will not topple over the government. Because we still got to provide education for your children. $28 million a year it costs to provide free education at Cave Hill. Leadership matters. The same Verla told Kirk Humphrey that it did not matter if the Dems were taking over and removing free education because it would force people into technical and vocational education. Have you ever heard more ignorance? And people in this constituency know that the stability and the viability of the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus matters to you because many of you have built on little apartments and have the ability to rent units and apartments to students at Cave Hill. A lie? That's a fact. And then let us talk about sports. Leadership matters. We're going to take a chance on our people. We are now, you see these lights here. When I was Attorney General, we started putting lights on playing fields and pastures because we recognized that we needed to create opportunities for people to run boat at night, not just during the day. We have taken decisions and we are putting lights on 87 playing fields in this country and hard courts. We are building 15 mini stadia that will be fenced in like there, but will also have landscaping, because I really would like little landscaping to make the place a little softer. But secondly, we'll also provide bleachers so that people can sit down and watch. And that way, if you wanted to charge a little $5 or $10 entrance fee for a community sporting event, you can do so. Because we're making a difference where people's lives matter. That old derelict police station there, were it not for COVID, we would have already transferred it to be able to do community facilities for this community and the extended areas. It will shortly be done. And we are also working with the Maria Holder Memorial Trust at the back of it too, to provide services in this community. I could go on and on and on tonight. But I want you to know that leadership matters. You may not think that everybody in this government is perfect, because nobody is. We don't have perfection. That's for divine beings. But what we have done is to work damn hard each and every day. And sometimes you may not see the MP, you may not see Sandra, because I have been a hard taskmaster. But if I have failed, it has been in not telling you and the country how difficult it has been to keep this country afloat, and why we have had cabinet meetings many nights, going into 9 and 10 o'clock. Many times, many eat after midday, 1 o'clock. We have to recognize that the world in which we live in has changed, and the crises that potentially this country faces requires a serious government with serious programs. We don't need the kind of distractions and the drawn daggers that they have waiting for her Thursday night, Thursday morning. We don't. And Barbados has to ask itself, Bajans have to ask themselves, can we really afford to take a chance with a government that does not know what they're doing? Frandel told you it was a glorious decade. And the only way you can accept Frandel's word is if you go and get the Oxford Dictionary to redefine the definition of the word glorious. Because there was nothing glorious about what you endured or suffered. And you have here a man. You have here a person who has come with an arrogance that is unknown to Barbadian politics of a youngster and a new first timer. I will only say to you, especially all around here, that loyalty matters, not just leadership. Loyalty matters. And that when you're looking around, you know, it's the most amazing thing. A man tells you he wanted to run for a constituency. Come and see me back in 2017. And 2 months after he saw me, I hear he accepted a job in BVI. At the same time that he said he want to run for a constituency. I hear that he said that I offered him a Senate pick. Now you really must tell the truth when it comes to what I was offering anybody. Because I've never offered him, I don't know his name. I've never offered him a Senate pick. And it bothers me that he believes that his way to success is to tell stories that cannot be verified by the parties who are in it like me. Now you can call that what you want to call it. You said what? You said what? You can call it that. I can tell you it is not true. Look, let us get serious. Even in this community, they will tell you that loyalty matters. When you cannot trust a man, how are you going to vote for that man? I ain't even talking about hopping, because anybody can change a position. But it is how you do it and when you do it. And I'm saying to you tonight that do not get tied up. I understand that some of you may not have gotten exactly what you wanted. But remember, the election has also been called early. And therefore, we have taken a deliberate decision to abridge the time that we had. Why? Because this country needs to settle. And yes, there are difficult decisions. We are going to have a workforce that is smaller than the one that we have in 12, 13 years' time. You know what that means for your pensions at NIS? No, you will get. Because if you vote for the Barbados Labour Party government, we will ensure that we stabilize it.
Oh, your bad so!
Yeah! You have the Dems walking about telling people that we are going to cut their pensions. Have you forgotten that this is the government that increased non-contributing pensions by over $70 every 2 weeks? And I did the numbers in the farm the other night. Those people who they told me I could not do it and could not give them the increased pension. And that is when at Wharton I told you, give me the vote and watch me. And we did it. Those people have gotten an extra $7,000 in the last 3 years because the Barbados Labour Party was the government. They told Colin Jordan and me that we could not implement a national minimum wage and that you should continue to work for $5 and $6 an hour. And we said no. We went and we put a commission in place, and the commission reported, and as of April last year, a national minimum wage of $8.50 and $9.50 for security has been in place in this country. They told you that you should not get reverse tax credit if you were earning more than $1,500 a month. And even then, you should only get $600 a year. We came in, increase it now to $1,300 a year, and anybody earning $2,000 a month or more, or less, gets the $1,300 a year to compensate for the VAT that you pay when you go in the supermarket and bout the hardware stores, etc. For real, I want Barbadians to be discerning. Clear? None of us can force anybody to vote. But if you like yourself, if you really like yourself, then there is no issue, because the choice is clear. You can vote for Sandra Husbands, who has done her best to help both at the community level. She was like a stuck record in cabinet on the issue of the electricals in these units in Haynesville. A stuck record. Every week without fail. Lord Sandra, give me a break. I tell you we're going to do it. That's a fact. I can tell the truth. Colin is there saying yes, because he was there. the choice is clear. I'm not even getting into Donville because I'm not in that. That can't help you, nor me, nor nobody, not even Donville. Not getting into that. But what I am telling you is that if you don't vote for your future on Wednesday, you have no one else to hold accountable but yourself. And don't tell me that the government's safe. Mamia, you safe. Sandra, safe. Safe what? When you open a ballot box, they ain't got nothing in it. The only thing that can get count is what put in it. So if you don't go and cast the next and cast it for Sandra Husbands, then any number can play. And what you have instead are people who are more interested in securing their salary in opposition than your future in government. I do not understand it. And there are too many young people in this constituency whose lives stand to be affected. The first thing that they will touch again will be university fees because it is $28 million. If they're not earning and they're not managing the economy well, that goes. They want to quarrel because I have 7 of us, including me, Marsha, and Ryan. So you got 4 advisors for a whole country. But Goddard's Enterprises Limited got more advisors, I'm sure, or Shipping and Trading, or Massey. And you want to downgrade this country to bring people who don't know what they're doing? I see business people in this crowd, and they will tell you that when the time comes, they go and hire the best that they can get if they want to make profits. You mean to tell me that a country is not to engage the best to advise it, to keep you safe? And the good news is that in doing it, the results are there. You heard what that meme did to Richard Seeley when he tell you that by every metric, this economy is worse. Worse where? Debt, $16.6 billion when we took over. Now, dropped to 12.7, and because of COVID, only gone back up to 13.1. No more downgrades. In fact, upgrades and positive outlook. We were owing as a government $1.9 billion when we took over. For people 12 months and more, 1.9 billion down to 65 million. You understand what I'm telling you? Our reserves, we had less than 4 weeks, and within 3 weeks we would have had to pay $100 million in debt. So the 440 would have been down to 340, 3 weeks. Today, our reserves are 3 billion and 51 million. Almost, what? 7.5 times what we inherited. And why is that important? Because from the new Royalton that going where Discovery Bay was in Old Town, to the Hyatt in Bridgetown, to the new hotel next to Sam Lord's after Sam Lord's finishes, to the one going next to KFC in Hastings, to the Pierhead project, to the building, the hotel between the Pierhead and Hyatt, to the 10,000 houses, to the new geriatric hospital. We have it, and I didn't even talk about the redesign of Sandals Beaches down in Speightstown, Colin. That's why it's a new geriatric in the Botanical Gardens, geriatric hospital. And I am not calling all the projects yet. I ain't talk about the roads or the water bins or the desal plants or any of those things. Barbados is going to have a construction boom this year. And that is why in the manifesto we talk about construction gateway to train youngsters in skills, advanced crash program to train basic masonry 8 weeks and basic carpentry 12 weeks. If we don't do it, we will be in trouble. And as I moved around here in Haynesville earlier this week, that is exactly what the young men said to me. The clean and green is also coming. My friends, I have 3 other meetings to speak to tonight. And I ask you tonight to give me Sandra Husbands with your vote on Wednesday, to continue the excellent work, the mission of transformation of this country. We can do it, but we cannot do it without you. We cannot do it without your support and vote. And I say support and vote because you've heard me say that support is not votes. Flour is not cake. And if you don't put that vote in the box, it will not count. And whatever we do, we are children of democracy. We will live with your result Wednesday night, Thursday morning. But can you live with the results if it is other than the Barbados Labour Party? Will you have a government that knows what it is doing if it is other than the Barbados Labour Party? Will you have a leader that knows what she's doing if it was other than the Barbados Labour Party? Liz, welcome, darling. Will you? And I therefore say to you that you carry now on Wednesday not only your vote for you, but a vote for your children, because this country cannot take any more errors. We went through a decade of mismanagement, and we tried to correct it and did a good job, but then came the pandemic that threw us down, and then the ashfall, and then the freak storm, and then the hurricane. And with that, ask yourself how you are still standing as Bajans. Had we not done what we did to correct the debt and to put the country safe by December 2019, Barbados could not have withstood the last 2 years of those bad events. And Sandra Husbands was part of that team that helped us to do it. I have come here tonight to say to you that all who say you want me to be Prime Minister, all who say you love me, Mia, you can't vote for me unless you vote for Sandra Husbands. Let me get it straight. Don't get tied up. And therefore, once you do that, we will meet on Thursday to continue the journey, to continue the transformation. And I get it. I get it. People now want to be able to express themselves. And we have given you that chance throughout. It's not me who increased the powers of a Prime Minister. I reduced them. It is Verla that literally went and amended a constitution so that nobody could challenge her. So when you have that decision to make, go tonight and sleep. And as you put your head on your bed, remember that leadership matters. And if ever there was a time to vote for leadership in this country, it is Wednesday, January 19th, 2022. And in voting for leadership, give me the vote by giving me Sandra Husbands on that morning. Thank you, good night, and God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, the woman of the hour, the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Amor Motley. Thank you, Prime Minister. I spoke earlier of the proud history of the Barbados Labour Party and the fact that the Barbados Labour Party has consistently, era after era, thrown up leaders and leadership for their time. Tonight I want to bring to the lectern a woman of outstanding stature and performance. 3 times a lady, they tell me. And having left government, space was found for her at the highest levels of international government. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the lectern, Ambassador Elizabeth Thompson.
I'm half Tony's height. Good evening. A very happy and blessed new year to you. In the last couple of days, after living in New York for the last 10 years, you see, they've set these platforms for tall people. So after living away, I came home, and I was home for the last couple of months since May. And I decided that I would walk around in Haynesville and ask for support for the candidate of the Barbados Labour Party, your parliamentarian, and my parliamentarian, Sandra Husbands. And as we are on the boundary, I want to ask for the support for Kerry Simmons in St. James Central. And then as we go north, I want to ask for support for my cousin, Eddie Hinkson. As I reflected tonight, and I made some notes, and that's part of the reason why I'm not standing up there, but perhaps I should stand where I would be able to see better and where you would see me, because they tell me that I'm so short you can't see me. The problem is that you would have Mr. Technical Person to move the microphone, because I like to talk with my hands, so I don't want to hold the microphone. So if I will take it down. Thank you so much. Okay. All right, thanks. I think this is okay. Thank you very much. Okay, good. So I have some notes, and from time to time I'm going to refer to my notes, but I was reflecting this evening on what I might want to speak about. I was reflecting on the state of the country. I was reflecting on the position of this election campaign. And sometimes the wisdom that emanates from what we like to call ordinary Barbadians, it is an expression that I do not like. Because what we are saying is that salt of the earth Barbadians, people who ain't big up, are ordinary when they're not. These are decent, hard-working people with a lot of wisdom in their bosom. These are people on whose backs and shoulders we have climbed to get where we are. And those of us who have happened to emerge as leaders, whether it is in commerce, whether it is in politics, whether it is as a supervisor in a hotel, whether it is working in the public service, these people have built us and made us who we are. And in I don't recall if it was the 1991 or 94 campaign, but the Democratic Labour Party was in a fair amount of confusion. And I was canvassing along the coast. It was dusk. And I was ending my canvass, and I was walking toward my car, and I saw an old man who was walking toward me, and I decided, might as well ask him for the vote. And I said, "Good evening, sir. I am Liz Thompson from the Barbados Labour Party, and I want to ask for your vote on whatever date the election was." Said, "Miss Thompson, I'm pleased to meet you. He said, I am thinking about this matter very carefully because I am a Dem. But when I look at the state of my party, I got to say it in trouble. And I got to say, Ms. Thompson, even a common pin got ahead. Spoke to me on the coast road. Even a common pin got ahead. The wisdom out of the bosom and the mouth of the Barbadian. And I want to speak to you tonight on that topic. Even a common pin got ahead. And if a common pin should have a head, should not a political party have a head? And who tonight is the head of the Democratic Labour Party, please? We do not know, nor do we know if what will happen with the Democratic Labour Party after elections. We do not know if the old guard is going to, or is planning to, or is fighting to emerge. We do not know if it will be Verla. We do not know if there are other people waiting in the wings. What we do know for a fact is that contrary to all the nonsense about 17 men having gone to Government House, or State House as it is now called, to remove the leader of the Barbados Labour Party, we know which she would have had, the President or the Governor General would have had to act on were it true. So we know it is a lie. But we know for a fact that members of the Democratic Labour Party gave information to the newspapers which appeared on the front page, in which they indicated that they had met and determined that they did not want Verla to lead them. This is days before an election was announced. That did not suddenly change. They still do not want Verla to lead them. And my suggestion to you is that if they know Verla and they don't want her, then we in the Barbados Labour Party have to do our best to make sure she is not inflicted on Barbados. And those of you who have a vote next week must do your utmost to make sure that Verla does not emerge as Prime Minister of this country. And I want to ask you the question. I wrote down three. The first I asked will be, who will be leader after elections? And the second and third question is, who is Verla de Pisa? She is a woman who has been around politics for 10 or more years. What do you know about her? What can you say she represents? What can you say she stands for? What can you say is the nature of her personality? What can you say are her core values? What can you say drives her as a leader? What can you say is her vision for Barbados? What can you say will be her style of leadership if she comes to high office in this country? And these are questions you have to ask and know the answers to. We know Mia Motley. We know how she speaks. We know how she walks. We know she communicates. We know she is blunt and frank. We know that she is a strong leader. We know that she does not crumble when things get tough, when ash falls from the sky, when lightning strikes the land, when flood comes against us. We know she stands firm, firm for the country, firm for the people. We know Mia Motley. We know that when there are challenges, you can see her in the kitchen serving out food, and then you see her in the command centers where the leaders of the country, the leader of the defense force, the commissioner of police at the helm like a leader. Who is Verla? What has she ever done? What has she ever said? We know that if you annoy me, she can tell you, I'm going to give you a big stoops, a long stoops, a short stoops. We know. What will Verla tell you? And please don't think that you don't have to know Verla. This woman was in the Senate supporting everything that the Democratic Labour Party did in the last term. Why is she not talking to you about that? Why is Verla pretending now that she was not part of the last 10 years of the Democratic Labour Party? The period to which Frundell refers as a glorious period. Now, good Lord, what role will Frundell Stewart play in the Democratic Labour Party if they win? Will he be president of the Senate? Will he be president of the country? Will they put him in the Senate? Will they give him some high office? What role will Frundell Stewart play in a Democratic Labour Party government? And we have to be deeply concerned because his position is that nothing wrong happened in Barbados between 2008 and 2018. No, I mean, people were hurt. People were offended when they heard Frundell. Frundell is at the stage when you know he is going to embarrass you. You know he is going to say things like that. What you should do is take out your blanket because you know the night's cold. Put Frundell to sit down by the front window. Throw the blanket over his shoulders to keep him warm. Pops, you good? Pops, you all right? I'm going to come back and check on you in 10 minutes. And you come back 10 minutes and Frundell, Pops, you want a little jello? And you go and get on with business and you come back. Pops, you ready for your tea now? Pops, you're going to take out your teeth before you go to bed. These are the kinds of things that should be asking Frundell. Why would they put Frundell on a stage to say to Barbados when people were in pain and hurting? People lost their jobs. People lost their houses. Barbados lost its international reputation with sewage on the street and with advisory after advisory, mashing up tourism, telling people do not come to Barbados. Why would they trot out Frundell at this stage unless it is that they are unrepentant? Unless it is that they are unremorseful, unless it is that they feel that they have done everything right, why would they trot out Frundell at this stage? And so I go back to the question, and I started to think that there are really several manifestations of Verla. And I want to say to you that as you listen to the Democratic Labour Party night after night, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing, your position has got to be not to feel sorry for them. And I want to speak to an issue that they keep flogging. They say Mia is a dictator because she is a strong and decisive leader. It is Verla who changed the rules of the Democratic Labour Party to stop anybody from challenging her. It is Verla whose manifesto shows that everything went wrong in it. We have to be very concerned about what is emerging as the Democratic Labour Party and as part of what they are doing. And therefore I want to pose the questions. Understand that if this Democratic Labour Party wins, and I was making the point and I want to go back to it, in this election you are not voting for an opposition. You are voting for a government. And I want to urge Barbados Labour Party supporters, the election is not won until the last vote is counted. Get up, go out and vote. Those of you who know that your lives and your futures and your children's are under threat, get up, go out and vote. And do not vote for any opposition. Do not say you must have a strong opposition, so I'm going to give them a sympathy vote. Because if they get enough sympathy votes, we will wake up on the morning of the 20th and find that Eswick and Lashley and Frundell and Verla and all of that crowd are sitting down in the seats of government in this country. You cannot risk giving them any sympathy votes because you feel you have to vote for an opposition. I would like to remind you, they say Mia is planning to do this after elections and that after elections, and she has some agenda. If her agenda was subterfuge, if her agenda was nefarious, if her agenda was chicanery, the woman had a 30-0 majority. She could have done anything she wanted in the last 3.5 years with that majority. There were no Dems in Parliament. There was only Joe Atherley on the other side. Dismiss that as the nonsense that it is. Do not let the fear-mongering get to you. This thing about the IMF going to do this and the IMF going to do that. The Dems tried all of that. Saying all of that in 2018. We could not do pensions. We couldn't do bus fares. We couldn't give new buses. And we could not give pension increases. And we couldn't give civil servants increases. And all of that happened. And not only did it happen, the economy improved. So therefore, if the Barbados Labour Party says to you that things are going to get better because there is an even stronger agenda, an even more beneficial agenda, a more prosperous, a more prosperity structured agenda, more projects, more benefits, more legislation that will help you coming post-elections. Our record shows that you can trust us. Our record shows that you can trust us. But I want to turn to the question of who is Verla. The first thing that a leader must have is standards. A woman by the name of Dawn Marie something or the other got on the platform and was extremely disrespectful. Verla, as a leader, hearing another woman abused, was silent, just as she was silent in 2018 when they abused Prime Minister Motley. The same way that the Dems started their election campaign with abuse in 2018 is exactly what they have come back and done today in 2022. Nothing has changed. A young man who is young enough, I believe, from his appearance, a man who is known to the police and the courts, with all the Democratic Labour Party banners behind him on a Democratic Labour Party platform, got up and said, Liz Thompson is a CUN, and I ain't going to finish the word, he said. If somebody from the Barbados Labour Party had done that, the churches in Barbados would have brought down wrath on our heads. We would have had to apologize. All of us would have had to wear sackcloth and ashes. We would have had to go down on our knees. And Verla, a female leader, has this young boy call me a four-letter word, or that was what he was attempting to say, so it appeared to those who saw the video clip and the many people who sent it to me, on a Democratic Labour Party platform in an election campaign, or on the verge of an election campaign, when they should be talking issues, when they should be talking what impacts people, when they should be talking about the international situation. He gets on a platform to abuse me in the most crude way, and Verla, a woman, says nothing. He gets to run as a candidate and to be paraded as somebody that we should respect and vote for. That is who the Democratic Labour Party is. That is what they stand for. And the same Dawn has doubled down on her previous comments by now printing a t-shirt saluting her own speech. So I want to ask some questions. What are Verla's standards? We remember in the last campaign a photograph, a video of Verla, some little children who could not vote, shouting BLP slogans, and Verla stops a truck, gets off a truck, and charges at the people's little children. Do you all remember that video? What kind of woman, what kind of leader, what kind of person shows themselves as an attacker of people's little children who you should walk by and hand some sweeties to and ignore anything that they say if they are not your supporters? That tells you about her personality. Verla said in St. George that they knew that we were coming with a by-election, but the election was almost over before they identified a candidate. On this occasion, She said she knew we were coming with an election, and they were almost ready. The manifesto was almost ready. They were ready. And yet, only this week, the manifesto comes out. It gets leaked. Poor Richard Seeley is misdescribed. His constituency is wrong. His name is wrong. Well, that isn't an accident, I think, because clearly he's one of the people who want to vie for the leadership. So I don't think that was any accident. The manifesto comes out, and Maxine McLean is on WhatsApp and in chats telling people, oh, that was not the finished copy of the manifesto. We still have to correct it before tonight. So hours before the manifesto is to be presented to the public, they are still demonstrating that they are not ready, that it is not finished. And then she says, a leader should not have their face on the front of the manifesto as big as a bus. Well, good Lord. When their manifesto comes out, her face is as big as a container truck. And nobody else, because them ain't nothing. And she said so, that look how small the BLP members are next to me. But there is nobody, there are no DLP members next to her on the front of the manifesto. Why? How does she see herself? How does she think she needs to promote herself? And why does she need to promote herself and not let you see the image of a single other person in the Democratic Labour Party? I found it very, very interesting. In the 2019 by-election, or was it 2020? 2020, beg your pardon. I described Verla as a political night watchman. And this is a cricketing constituency. You understand what a night watchman is. A person who comes out to hold and take some hard balls because the real batters are coming after that. And that is the position into which Verla was put. She was placed there to take the grunt work and the blows at this time so that she could be replaced when they were ready to be done with her. Will Verla, the dictator, emerge? And I say Verla the dictator because I already made the point to you that she has changed while the Prime Minister of Barbados is decreasing her own powers, having a more inclusive conversation with the country on every issue, saying that she supports term limits for leaders, saying that she, and in fact doing where she puts the choice of the president and the entire parliament rather than in her own hands, while she is busy decreasing her own authority. Verla is ensuring that nobody can run against her. So when they talk about dictatorship, where is the dictatorship really? Is it on this side or is it on that side? And every night you hear them on political platforms parading as political centipedes when they are really only millipedes, attempting to sting people. And night after night, you see the blunders and the errors and the emptiness and the lack of substance in the speeches. They are not connecting or even colliding with the issues of importance to this country. They are not connecting or colliding with the issues that will make a difference in your life. They are not telling you what they are going to do if they win the election. We've outlined our position. You will have your land tax off up to $400,000. Many people here will pay no land tax at all. You will continue to get further increases. 50,000 people are going to have solar panels for electricity on their roofs. We are building 10,000 homes for those in a certain economic bracket. We have outlined a policy agenda for you. We have indicated that we are standing firmly behind the posture, behind the policies, behind the programs, and behind the person of Mia Amor Motley. And we are urging you on the 19th of January to go out and equally throw your support behind the Barbados Labour Party, because even a common pin must have a head. Good night and God bless you.
We say for with Mia. We say for with Mia.
My sweet Barbados, we greater. When me and Motley, we safer. Try put them nights, don't we go wait till later. When I hear my,
Right now she got vibes galore. We voting Mia Amor. She's the best PM for me. Mia and the BLP. Who best to lead this country?
Ladies and gentlemen, your former parliamentary representative, Ambassador Elizabeth Thompson. And now, ladies and gentlemen, your outgoing parliamentary representative presenting herself and inviting you once again to return her to the House of Assembly to serve another term, your candidate, the Barbados Labour Party's candidate, my friend, my colleague, and your next representative, Miss Sandra Husband.
BLP got the place crowded. All aboard? Yeah. You ready to roll? Yeah. Can I talk just a little bit? Can I really talk just a little bit? Can I really talk just a little bit? Hold on. Now is the time.
Now is the time.
Everybody ready?
Everybody ready?
Go tell your friends.
Go tell your friends.
Tell your whole family.
Your whole
Tell
family.
the stranger up on the left.
On the left.
Tell the stranger up on the right.
On the right.
We rolling with BLP. It's one chance to make this right. Together we rolling. Together we moving. Together we working. And we building. Tell me how you're feeling. You know why? All our way to BLP. All our way. One family. All our way to BLP. All our way to BLP. Come let me step. Making it better.
And a wonderful good night to St. James South. I want to start by thanking my colleagues for coming and sharing, talking with you, helping you to understand what government has been about, what are some of the things that we have put in place, caring for you, ensuring that you were safe during a pandemic, and looking to build a future for you. I want to thank the Prime Minister, and I want to thank Liz Thompson, Colin Jordan, Edmund Hinkson, and Neil Rowe for coming and passionately sharing what the Barbados Labour Party is all about. What is it we stand for, where our heart is at, and what it is we are committed to. And I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, in all honesty, that when I sit in that cabinet, their one thought, our one thought, is how to give you a better life. And you could not want a better government than you have had over these last 3.5 years. God knows what would have happened to this country, what would have happened to our lives had a different government been in the seat when we were faced with challenge upon challenge that was looking to wipe out every single thing that we have worked for. Challenge after challenge that wants to take away the dreams of our children and deny them a future. And we have committed, I'll never forget one day, Prime Minister said, we were not anticipating this. We had just finished the debt restructuring. We had just done Mission Critical. And we had all the plans in place for takeoff. And up came COVID. Up came storm and freak storm and dust storm and every kind of thing you could think of. And I'll never forget, she said, We did not come to office expecting this, but this is the hand that God has given us, and perhaps He has brought us to the kingdom for such a time as this. And that is true from the bottom of my heart. And I want to thank you because you chose me as your parliamentary representative for such a time as this. I have had the privilege to sit in a cabinet where this nation was faced with its greatest challenges. No other administration had so many things that could shake down and destroy our businesses, shake down and destroy our homes. And I had the privilege to be a part of history in being able to help shape what was delivered to you, help to be a part of creating the environment to allow our trade to thrive in very difficult circumstances. And I want to thank you. Tonight I have come to ask you to trust the Barbados Labour Party. I have come to ask you to trust Mia Motley and her leadership. I have come to ask you to trust that I, Sandra Husbands, will continue to work on your behalf. And as fast as the government is able to make the necessary provision, put in place the necessary initiatives, to trust that I will ensure that those benefits also redound to you, the good people here in St. James South, to ensure that you are able to get a future. One of the things this moment created for us here in St. James South was a level of stress that was unprecedented. I saw it in your faces. I heard it in your voices. Families suddenly faced with no income. People not working. Can't pay the rent. Challenges with food. Challenges with paying bills. And it wasn't just a handful of people. It was hundreds of families. Families who did not know what it was to live like that in a long, long time. Why? Because when we first left office, we left our families here in St. James South in good standing. Liz did an excellent job in making sure that there were jobs, making sure that people had opportunity, that there were activities for our children. And along comes the Democratic Labour Party, and in 10 years, they mashed up the foundations of the economy, and then we had to come in to deal with it. And as we sought to deal with it, we were faced with these huge crises, but we were able to face them together and fix them. And I mean face them and fix them. What I want to congratulate the families in St. James South on is the fortitude with which they faced their difficulties. And it wasn't easy. It was not easy at all. And people faced it with fortitude. I'll never forget, I was down in Durant's Village. I'm knocking on doors and I'm asking parents, how are you managing? How are things? Are you working? What's happening with the family? And families said to me, things real rough, man. Things real rough. And families said to me, but look, we taking it one day at a time. We can manage it. That is fortitude. People said to me, we can get through this. God don't give you no more than you can bear. That is faith. Man, look, Miss Husbands, it real rough, but it can't be rough all the time. That is hope. And I said to myself, as I looked at what you were encountering, I said to myself, we have to fight together to break this. And so what I want to share with you this evening is how we are going to work together to break the back of poverty. How we together as the Barbados Labour Party, you, the constituents of St. James South, with me as your MP, how we are going to address the issue of breaking the back of poverty. Now, when we were confronted with the challenges the Barbados government, the Barbados Labour Party, had to quickly put initiatives in place to help people to survive. You cannot have one day high employment levels where people are working and 2 days later the whole of tourism shut down and thousands of people go home and not feel that economic shock all through the country. Because when the tourism workers could no longer work because of COVID and the shutdowns, it meant that thousands of homes now did not have income. What did that mean? That people could not go and support the shops in their neighborhood. They couldn't go to the girl who does the braiding, the nails. The beauty consultants couldn't get any work. The stores downtown didn't have people to come and buy from them. And so their jobs began to shackle out. So little by little, that tumbling went on in the Barbadian economy, bringing poverty to people and to their lives. And the challenge was, how were we going to face it and deal with it as a government? And as we sat around the
So a man who came here, nurtured by Owen Seymour Arthur, as indeed I was, held close to the breast of a great prime minister, as indeed I was, didn't get his own way at his first outing. His approach is that he down tools, he done with that, he go along with the dems. It tells you something about the character of the man. And I don't want to waste any more time on him because the character of the man speaks for itself. It is equally offensive, my friends, over across the road there in St. James Central. And in case y'all don't know, this road was separated south from Central, so effectively it is one. You cross from Kings Village in St. James Central, you come over here in St. James South. And we share all the way, the border going all the way up through Torps and all through Prior Park. Sandra on the right and Kerry on the left. And therefore I have a vested interest in what happens down here. And the raw, naked opportunism of the man who ran against me is a matter I will deal with another time. Because he's a strange quirk of personality, a man gone mad. A man who, even though he has no seat in parliament, even though most people in the community even cannot tell you his name properly, even though most people would tell you that there was a marshal that had to pick him up and carry him elsewhere because of the fact that he would not pay bills due. He stand up with a video camera saying that road work being done is as a result of his presence. He has a godlike mentality. Equally offensive as the chap running against Sandra. He too has a God mentality. He's more important than anybody else because he's doctor, etc., etc. But it's not about that. I listened just now to Sandra tell you what it was. And this is why we have to be very careful of a few things. First of all, this constituency stands to benefit. And I want this message to go forth from here. This St. James South stands to benefit as indeed the St. James Central. Let me tell you the places now that will be given tax relief. Because you've got to make people understand that if they live in Hoyts Terrace, and if they live in Bagatelle, and if they live in Prior Park, and if they live in West Terrace, all of these people are now taken off in Crystal Heights. Taken off of a land tax roll, all because virtually all of them live now in homes which are valued at less than 400,000. If it is over 400,000, it ain't that many. So your first 400,000 is tax free. Give Sandra Husbands a vote and the Barbados Labour Party a vote, and these people are alleviated from that. That's what this is about. It is about making sure, as Sandra just explained to you, that the roof of your house ceases just to be a roof, but your house now earns you a living. Your house generates income for you in a way that your house never did before. And that therefore when there's a noise between Iran and Iraq, or a noise between the United States and somebody else in that Gulf, That has nothing to do with you. But you all know what your history has been. The price of fuel goes up because the price of oil has gone up. And the heavy fuel oil that drives your electricity has gone through the roof for us to source it. The consequences to you is that the fuel adjustment clause in your light bill radically transforms itself. And all of a sudden, your light bill that was hovering around $125, $150 when the month come becomes $250. You have no control over that. That has been the pain that we've had to go through. Where I differ with Sandra is that it is not accurate to say that the policy is not set. It is very set. I would not have allowed the election to come without having it being set. So I can tell you that we have had the discussions with the credit union movement in Barbados and that they are on board. They are on board. I have Mr. Halley Haynes, who is the head of it, at my side. And that if you give Sandra Husbands a vote, every rooftop in St. James South is eligible, and every owner of that rooftop is eligible to go to the credit union and take out a loan to cover the cost of the solar panels which will be on your roof. And then that loan can be paid off over a period of 7 years. But the life of the panel is 20 to 25 years. So after that, my friends, this is all yours. That is gravy. That way you carry to the bank. You owe the light and power not a cent. Everything after the 7 years you own that panel, but the sun continues to shine. And you are in a position then, if you generate more, as Sandra said, if your roof big enough, or you generate more power than you use, you consume, irrespective of the size of the roof, because you can have a small roof and be frugal. You can make sure you don't waste, but you conserve energy, and that's the conversation the country must have. But once you conserve your energy, you sell the excess back into the grid, though, and the light and power buying it from you to run industry because their energy must be all about this country. Everything tonight, every activity tonight around Barbados is requiring electricity. And you'll be helping sell that electricity. The all light and power doing now is buying it from you, the people. And that is the new economic structure created by my ministry. It is a new economy in which you, the people, can benefit. And the thieves in the Democratic Labour Party who cannot, they are political kleptomaniacs. A manifesto comes out and they rush hot and sweaty to borrow ideas. And as Richie Haynes said when he was in opposition many years ago, you know, you can tell the Democratic Labour Party exactly what they should do, and don't worry about anybody carrying away an idea, because the truth of the matter is they don't know how to implement it. And so therefore, they now come with a manifesto, a namby-pamby manifesto, and they say they're going to want to do the same concept, but for only houses where the income of the householder is less than $20,000. Now, my friends, a year. That means that only if you're working for not even $1,200 a month. You're working for less than $1,200 a month. You would qualify. And the truth of the matter is, two people in a house working, one earning $12,000 when the year come, and the other worker earning $8,000 when the year come. That is the standard at which they will go and no higher. Now this is where the philosophical divide comes. Because no longer are we in the 1960s where we can indulge ourselves in this thing about just in creating some form of patronage to help one little corner of the society. This must be about making sure that there is not the dangerous divide across Barbados, where there are a large swath of our population that do not have access to technology and technological development while other people have it. And so therefore, Verla de Pisa and Ronnie Yearwood, if you don't understand it, benefit from a tutorial. That if you have a home where the $20,000 is your cap, then my friends, your challenge in that home is that the first thing you gotta do likely is to repair, first is a repair job, because most of those small houses in Barbados will not have the roof structure that will easily allow for the panels to go on safely. So you got to factor in how you're going to repair the people's home. We in our manifesto have dealt with that, because we tell you that part of what we are doing is a general home ownership thrust in which there will be special focus on the development of housing and housing related activity in Barbados, including making sure that within the next couple months there is a 3-month program, Professor Prasad, a 3-month program where every young man and young woman in Barbados who's interested will be able to benefit from courses in carpentry and masonry and tiling and plumbing, etc., etc. So we know how we know how we can make sure the infrastructure is right. But the benefit in this is that philosophically, we must recognize that we cannot have a society in which there are those who have access to the technology and those who do not have it. And COVID, if it has taught you anything, has taught you that danger. We have homes in Barbados, my friends, where there are people who do not have a computer in the house. We have homes in Barbados where the people do not have internet in the house. We have homes in Barbados where there are 6 children but 1 computer. And that divide means that those families are less well off when you're talking about education online at home than the families in another part of Barbados where there's a computer for every child. And that is what we have to make sure does not happen now with the energy technology, where there are some who have it and some who do not have it. And the Barbados Labour Party is philosophically committed to making sure that all of you can get it. Now, while the rain falls, it means that you start to get a little bit uncomfortable. I ask you to put up your umbrellas, because we have things to talk about. We have a St. James South, in which you must also recognize that through Sandra Husbands' representation, I sat in cabinet. Colin Jordan spoke here tonight, I believe. Colin spoke here, Sandra. It's Colin spoke here. I trust he talked about the minimum wage, because I was in cabinet when there were those who started to go wobbly at the knees, who started to buy into the nonsense that the Democratic Labour Party was peddling, that, well, you know, is it too much, too soon? Can we really afford? And Sandra was the first to utter the words, but when is it a bad time to do a good thing? Because what was the minimum wage legislation about? It was about helping people in Haynesville who are working for a minimum wage get $10 a day more or $12 more. That is what it was about. And the private sector was telling you, oh, we can't do this because the country can't afford it. And there was people who were robust in their defense of the working class, like Sandra, who said, look, I got people in Haynesville, though, who need to have this additional money when the week come, and could not accept that you would not assist them. I need to have a Sandra Husbands next door to me, because the battle in the Pains Bay Fish Market was a battle assisted by Sandra. When we went and take a fish market that the Democratic Labour Party had run down, that the wood, the grain of the wood was discolored by the blood and the offal from the fish, that the tiling changed color, the growth was nasty as hell, but we are selling fresh fish to these people. And Sandra, I see you, Tony, but bear with me. I am in St. James tonight, and in St. James, nobody silences Gary Simmons. Let me tell you that now. And so therefore, we had a Sandra Husbands that worked with me, because Sandra's ministry was continuing to promote the need for us to have standards that the ordinary working class people of Barbados, who, whether they live in Holders Hill or live in Haynesville, the story must be told. If they live in Haynesville or they live in Holders Hill or in Pains Bay, that they go in that fish market and they buy fresh fish, though, and they were buying it in a set of circumstances that were not hygienic and safe. and her ministry that is guiding Barbados' trade and calling for the introduction of sanitary standards so that all of our product can meet that level of requirement and be prepared for export to the rest of the world. But it gotta start at home. You don't just export it to the rest of the world. You gotta sell it to your own people in accordance with the same standard that the rest of the world is demanding. So that you have, as you look at Paynes Bay Market, don't feel it is a nice artistic and architectural design. It is a market which reflects the work done in the Ministry of Foreign Trade, which is setting standards for Barbados that are required for Barbadian products sold overseas by way of our trade through Sandra Husbands' work. When Ronnie, whatever his name, starts to mama guy and pomposette, let him understand he running against a woman who has been part of the backbone of the new economy. And he ain't ready yet. He is not ready yet. And I don't think, as I tell you, that I need to go on all night. I want you to understand that when it comes to sporting facilities, Sandra Husbands has been there. I have no doubt that you are all aware that all the electrical wiring done in the units here in Haynesville was done as a result of the representation of that woman standing up there, though. Not Ronnie Airwood. I was called down there by Sandra to explain to some of those people what the challenges would be legally. Sandra, not Ronnie Airwood. And the rectification that was done is testimony to the commitment that Sandra Husbands had to defend the interests of the people of Haynesville, and everybody else in Barbados who had a housing unit run behind it and said they want the wiring done too. Real talk, because I was there when the fire took place, Sandra, and you were when I arrived down there at your call, you were there with the people holding the hand. But yet I hear people say that they don't see Sandra, but they are blind. Because they're going to see her work. We need her. We need her. And that means we need you. We need you on the 19th to go where only you can go and do what only you can do in as many numbers as possible. It is a serious thing because the ballot box, as they say, starts empty, but it ends full. If the Barbados Labour Party supporters do not take this moment seriously, you will find that the Dems, who will rake up as many drug men as they can find, as many people as they can buy out, as many people who are willing to enjoy a corrupt lifestyle. You feel that only Donville Innes was corrupt? Even though he is in prison, there are others who are out. And I am saying to you that this Barbados Labour Party has a journey to continue. But we cannot go on that voyage without having one of our most important oarsmen. And Sandra is one of those oarsmen. Give her your support. Defend your constituency from the predators. Defend your constituency from the best friends of the man who is in prison, who are still loitering about here to see what else is left of the carcass to pick at. They are unrepentant. And you must prove to the world that you stand in solidarity with the justice system overseas and with the policies of the government here. Ladies and gentlemen, give Sandra your support. I beg of you. Good night and God bless you.
BLP got the place crowded. All aboard? Yeah. You ready to roll? Yeah. Can I talk just a little bit? Can I really talk just a little bit? Can I really talk just a little bit? Hold on. Now is the time.
That, ladies and gentlemen, concludes our sojourn with you here tonight. Tomorrow night, our campaign moves into Haynesville. We have a youth jamboree. We get started at 5 p.m. Come hear several speakers speak on behalf of the government, on behalf of Sandra Husbands. Good night. Get home safely. God bless. January 19th, vote Barbados Labour Party and Sandra Husbands.
You ready to roll?
Don't stand home and play that you vex. Get out there and give me the X. Cause you know BLP is the best. BLP. If you love Barbados as bad as me, vote for BLP. Me and of the BLP